People who read books are harder to control. And this is important because if you live in the world, I can guarantee there's somebody out there who wants to control you. First, there's lousy teachers and lousy parents trying to tell you what to do. Then I can say this because I am both a lousy teacher and a lousy parent. You two go clean your rooms.
Absolutely not.
Lots of governments and politicians want your obedience. Corporations and billionaires are trying to trick you into buying stuff you don't need. But you are a human being and you are by nature free. You ought to be free. But because people are trying to boss you around all the time and trying to manipulate you, you've got to put some effort into protecting and safeguarding your freedom. And while it is true that you should sometimes listen to your teachers and listen to your government, your real ambition in life should be to learn how to think for yourself. And that is why it is so important to read, because reading helps you become a free thinker and makes you harder to control. Why are people who read harder to control? One reason is that they tend to know a little bit about history. Reading helps you learn about the world and all the stuff that's happened. So when something is happening right now in your life, in your community, in your country, you can often recognize it as something you've seen before. You've seen these things before because you've read about them before. Let me give you an example. Have you ever heard of this book, Darkness at Noon? This is a novel by the author Arthur Koestler. It was written in the 1940s, and it's really a thinly veiled analysis or interrogation of Soviet Russia, what it was like to live in the USSR. And the book really illustrates what life is like living under a totalitarian regime. The main character is this guy Rubishov, and he's a political prisoner. He's imprisoned at the beginning of the novel, but we learn through flashbacks that he used to be a party loyalist. He was a good little soldier for the dictatorship until the dictatorship turned on him and he became an enemy of the state. There are important lessons in that book about tyranny and authoritarianism, about what they look like and how they work. This is the kind of thing I'm talking about. You read a book like this and you come to understand authoritarianism a little bit better. Everyone who sucks up to the dictator, every pick-me who wants to worship at the altar of the tyrant, will eventually be betrayed by the tyrant and declared an enemy of the regime. That's because authoritarianism depends on there being enemies. There always has to be an enemy, and an enemy within that the dictator is trying to hunt, trying to seek them out. Authoritarians always need to be discovering traitors, and if there are no traitors, authoritarians will invent traitors because it's the constant state of emergency that justifies their authority. Books like Darkness at Noon teach us how these systems work so that we can recognize them when they reemerge in the future or in the present. You learn stuff like this from books. Perhaps even more importantly, you learn about human psychology. People who read understand human nature. When you read fiction, for example, you encounter so many different character types. You meet liars and lovers and tyrants and cowards and courageous people. When you read a lot of books, this is what happens. When you're out in the world, you will meet people and you will recognize them, even though you've never met them before. And the reason that happens is because you have met someone just like them before in the pages of the books you read. And it's no mystery how this happens. Authors are very keen observers of human behavior, of human psychology, and they represent these human types in their books with extraordinary accuracy. In a paragraph, they can describe how someone eats a meal or how they conduct themselves at a party, and they provide you with a portrait, a whole psychological profile for that type of person. There's a Canadian author I like who's particularly good at this. His name's David Adams Richards. He's a bit like a Canadian Tolstoy. He writes these long, tragic novels about suffering and hope. This is one of his great books. It's called The Friends of Meager Fortune. It's a novel set in the early 20th century, and it's about a lumber town and the lumber industry. It's basically about these guys trying to make a life for themselves, doing this very difficult and very dangerous job outdoors in the Canadian winter. But it's also like what Richards does. He's so good at like small town politics and social dynamics, and he gives us these really stunning portraits of like petty jealousies and the way that gossip affects people's lives. There's portraits of courage and like average ordinary people doing noble and charitable and good things. And I think this is just such such an education because you understand like people's motivations better when you read. You understand why they do things, what makes them tick. And it just, generally speaking, it makes it harder for people to lie to you about stuff and mislead you about stuff because you understand people. So whether it's politicians or whether it's people in your life trying to tell you that look, this is the way things work, or this is why these people do the things they do, you understand whether or not that's real. You can discern fact from fiction because of what you know about people and how they operate. Richards, for example, he's so good on self-righteousness, like this phenomenon where people persuade themselves that they are morally justified to want the things they want or to hate the things they hate. That's a real thing that happens inside of human beings. It's something you gotta watch out for in yourself, and you gotta pay attention to it happening in the world. There are many forces in the world trying to manipulate you. Sometimes it might be as simple as peer pressure, people in your life trying to bully you into doing things. But it's also billboards and magazine. Do people read magazines anymore? Ads on your phone, you're scrolling, there's so many ads. One of the big things we've got to worry about living in the 2020s is algorithms. We've got these giant corporations trying to track and train your eyeballs every waking moment of the day. One thing that doesn't track your eye movements or your search history? Books. This is not insignificant. Reading is a way for you to spend your time to entertain and educate yourself that takes you, for a brief moment, off the grid. You can read things and learn things, educate yourself, expose yourself to ideas, and nobody has to know. Nobody is following you around with the cookies. Is that even how it's cookies that they use to track you? And here's the thing that matters most. You can temporarily disconnect your brain from the unending river of slop coming out of your phone. All the garbage that social media is constantly feeding you. Everything is an emergency. Everything is polarizing. Everything is designed to make you afraid or worried or envious. And look, I'm conscious I'm telling this to you on social media. That's how I'm speaking to you. I'm not telling you to throw your phone in a river. I'm not going to throw my phone in a river. I'm just telling you to pick up a book once in a while. David Foster Wallace, maybe you've heard of him. He was a great American writer, essayist, novelist. He died in 2008. And in the early 2000s, he gave this commencement address at Kenyon College. And it's this very famous speech. And he tells this anecdote about a couple of fish.
There are these two young fish swimming along, and they happen to meet an older fish swimming the other way, who nods at them and says, "Morning, boys, how's the water?" And the two young fish swim on for a bit, and then eventually one of them looks over at the other and goes, "What the hell is water?"
The point of this story, in Wallace's words, is that the most obvious, important realities are often the ones that are the hardest to see and to talk about. It's often hard to see the stuff we're swimming in, that we're surrounded by. The water we're swimming in is media. We've got these little devices in our pockets telling us what to pay attention to, who to admire, what to fantasize about, what to worry about, what to be afraid of. It's not at all subtle, and yet we don't always recognize the effects of it because we're immersed in it. Reading is like coming up for air. It's like immersing yourself in a different environment. You literally expose yourself to different environments, to different perspectives, to different worldviews, and you become a little more resistant to the pressures of contemporary media. It's so valuable to encounter words and ideas from different times and different places. They have different priorities and different concerns, and that helps you evaluate and reflect on your own priorities, your own ideas, your own opinions. And gradually, the fixations of your own time and place, all the things everybody's obsessed with or worried about all the time, they don't seem so all-encompassing anymore. You can kind of think your way outside of them. Reading helps you become an individual. You can think your own thoughts. You can assemble in your mind your own library, make connections between books and ideas that no one has ever made before. Think thoughts that no one has ever thought before. And in doing that, you become an individual. You become independent. You become unique, become an original thinker, and you become someone who is harder for the algorithms and their overlords to predict and manipulate and control. A lot of people in the world want you to be a sheep. I saw this podcast the other day. It was a clip of Brené Brown. She was on this podcast. I think it was the Diary of a CEO podcast. And she was talking about the tech billionaires and what they attribute their success to. This was very interesting.
So I hear someone say, hey, tech billionaire, what should my kids study? I'm worried for my kids. Wow, they should study coding, physics. And then 5 minutes later, as if that answer didn't happen, someone will say, to what do you attribute your success? I mean, deeply when you think about it. And the same person will say, my deep reading of philosophy and the Stoics.
These CEOs, Brown says, are very big on STEM education. They want all the kids to learn how to code and to go into all the computer stuff. But when they talk about what makes them successful, they say something different. People in positions of power who command a lot of resources, they understand how valuable reading and education can be. They know what's in the books. They don't necessarily want most people to study those things. Most people, they don't want to learn this stuff. And it's because obviously reading can also expose you to really radical ideas. Go read Simone Weil or Franz Fanon, James Baldwin or Ta-Nehisi Coates, and you'll get different perspectives on how the world works. It's writers like that who can provide us with language and concepts and arguments that can help liberate us, that can help us fight oppression and the people who want to dominate us. Books can open your mind to new ways of thinking and new ways of seeing the world. Speaking of which, if you like this video, you'll probably like that video, which is it's some book recommendations, books that will open your mind, that will challenge the way you think. Click on the link. I'll see you there, and I'll talk to you soon.